Good morning, 8th grade. It is Monday, April 6th. Welcome back to another week of videos in your American history class. I hope the first week you were able to get your work done. These videos were informative and entertaining because we're going to continue on into this week. Remember, Friday we left off right before the Battle of Britain on page 320 in section 20.1. We saw that pretty much all of free Europe has fallen except for Great Britain. And we're going to see what happens here at this point. With most of Western Europe in the grasp of the Axis powers, Great Britain stood alone as the last bastion of freedom in Europe. Determined to break the will of the British people, Hitler unleashed his Air Force bombers against London in July 1940. Britain prepared for the worst, and many London families had sent their children away to safety in the country. For 3 months, thousands upon thousands of bombs, 10,000 bombs in September alone, fell upon Great Britain. Despite the damages and loss of life, the people of London remained steadfast, hiding in bomb shelters during the air raids and cleaning up the debris when the bombers were gone. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill appealed to America for help, but not all Americans wanted to help Great Britain. Some wanted to adopt an isolationist policy, or a country that just simply wants to be left alone to its own devices. But Charles Lindbergh, though, he wanted to basically say, he was one of the heads of this belief, that he developed what was known as the America First Committee, that he wanted America to stay out of World War II, and we should build up our own defenses for if the war ever comes to us. When America entered the war, Lindbergh enlisted, though, and flew about 50 combat missions in the Pacific, so he changed his tune. After Pearl Harbor, many Americans did. Millions of Americans watched newsreels of the damage in London and listened to the explosions and air raid sirens on their radios as American newscasters on the scene reported the horror of the London Blitz, or the Battle of Britain as it was known. Gradually, the tide of American public opinion turned against Germany. President Roosevelt responded by shipping weapons and food to Great Britain. Formally, the United States remained a neutral nation, but the American Navy was soon protecting shipping convoys to Great Britain. With American aid, the Royal Air Force had cleared the skies of German planes by October of 1940, and Great Britain had won this air war. In 1940, President FDR broke tradition and ran for a third term. He, of course, was popular amongst the people and won re-election. In December 1940, he asked Congress to pass the Lend-Lease Act, which they did, which allowed basically Great Britain to borrow billions of dollars worth of war goods with the promise of paying them back at a low interest. Suddenly, factories that had stopped producing goods because of the Depression were back in business. People began able to work again as a result. On June 22, 1941, Adolf Hitler launches a surprise invasion on Russia, turning against his comrade, Joseph Stalin. This single event, though, shapes the history of what will happen to Germany in the following years. With Stalin's communist empire at war with Germany, both Churchill and Roosevelt now considered Stalin their ally against Hitler. Though Stalin was ruthless, he did agree to a truce between the two nations. The United States sent billions of dollars worth of weapons to Stalin, enabling his communists to fight against Hitler. Roosevelt continued to do all he could also to help Great Britain resist the Nazi onslaught. In the summer of 1941, Churchill and FDR hold a series of meetings on a ship off the coast of Newfoundland. Both leaders agreed to cooperate in resisting Germany and establish a post-war world order. They drew up this document known as the Atlantic Charter, which led to the formation of the United Nations. FDR had also recurred several good relations with Latin America even before his cooperation with Great Britain. In a series of agreements called the Good Neighbor Policy, Roosevelt agreed to consult the Latin American nations before any American involvement in the Caribbean or in Central or South America. When war finally came, the United States received a steady flow of vital war supplies from Latin America. In 1937, Japan had invaded China. When nationalist leader Chiang Kai-shek requested aid, we began to form an alliance with China. By September of 1940, though, Japan had joined the Axis powers by making an alliance with Hitler and Mussolini. Hideki Tojo, the military leader of Japan, insisted that neither the Japanese economy nor its people would grow without resources. Remember, Japan is an island nation, and he wanted to conquer more countries so they would have more supplies. And he viewed America, specifically our naval base in Pearl Harbor, as a potential threat. Tojo decided that if Japan could attack first and swiftly and catch America off guard, that it would dissuade or keep America from wanting to get into the war. Thus, on December 7th, 1941, the Japanese make a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, killing over 3,500 servicemen and destroying hundreds of battleships and naval carriers. But he makes a mistake with this. The main goal were our aircraft carriers, which were not at the base at the time, and two, he thought that this would destroy America's desire to enter the war. It had the opposite effect. America was enraged, and FDR finally found his reason to enter into World War II. And on December 8th, President Roosevelt asks Congress to declare war with an emphatic yes from Congress. We are ready. So as a result, America joins the Allied side against the Axis powers of Germany, Italy, and Japan. And that concludes today's lesson on 20.1. I want you to be sure that you read the pages. I didn't cover everything in there, but make sure on page 323 you do section 20.1 review, odd number only. Well, I'll see you guys tomorrow.